Do you find love exhausting? I never did, until I discovered a secret. The first love my best friend always talked about, the one she claimed she was completely devoted to, was my fiancé. Chapter 1. The law firm didn't have much work today, so I left early and drove to the mall. James arrived half an hour later. At the time, I was struggling to decide which flavor of fruit tea to get. He suddenly appeared beside me, wrapped an arm around my waist, and said, "Get the sweet orange one." I was startled. "How did you walk over without making a sound?" "You were just too focused. Do you want one too?" After ordering a cup of orange juice, I turned to ask him, "I'll just drink yours." I pouted and switched to a larger cup. Besides cosmetics and skincare stores, the first floor of the mall also had many jewelry shops. James and I picked one and walked in. "What kind of ring would you like to look at?" the sales associate asked. "A wedding ring," James answered, then glanced at his phone. "I need to step out and take a call." I looked back at him. I was already used to how busy he always was. I had already browsed the rings on the official website beforehand, so I simply asked the salesperson to bring out the ones I wanted to try. Unfortunately, I had a small frame and very slender fingers. The store didn't have my size, so the ring sat loosely on my finger and didn't look as good as I had imagined. James' phone call lasted quite a while. I waited for him, then tried on several other rings, but none of them satisfied me. Finally, when I put the first ring back on, James returned. Why did it take so long? His face looked dark, and there was something cold in his expression. Something came up at work. I rarely asked about his work, so I simply showed him my hand. "Does it look good?" "It looks beautiful. Anything you wear looks beautiful. It's just too big. We can have it adjusted or order another size," the salesperson reminded us softly. I was about to speak when James' phone rang again. Another interruption. My excitement instantly faded. A few minutes later, I walked out of the store. When James saw me, he looked slightly confused. "What's wrong?" "If you're busy, we can come back another day." Beatrice. I was used to suppressing my negative emotions, so I shook my head. "It's okay, I understand." Just then, I heard someone calling my name. "Beatrice?" I turned around. It was Robin. Chapter 2. Robin was my coworker. Half a year ago, she was transferred from a branch office to our main office. Since we were around the same age and had similar interests, we quickly became close friends. "You came here to shop too?" I greeted her with a smile. "You should have told me earlier. I would have waited for you. You walked so fast. How could I have told you in time? I only came here to eat." Robin was very beautiful. She had fair skin, long hair, and a small beauty mark under her eye. Whenever she smiled, she looked gentle and captivating. "Are you alone?" "Yeah, you know me. I often eat and watch movies by myself." "Then you're not alone today." I turned to look at James. His expression was calm, but there was a trace of impatience and frustration between his brows. He seemed to still be bothered by whatever happened at work. "Robin, you two met at my birthday party last time." I walked over and held onto his arm. "You don't mind her joining us for dinner, right?" Only after getting closer did I notice that James' muscles were tense. I lowered my voice and asked, "Is it really that difficult?" Hearing that, James' expression softened slightly. He put an arm around my shoulder, turned slightly toward me, and gently touched my cheek. His deep voice was warm. "It's nothing, but I might not be able to have dinner with you." I pressed my lips together and stayed silent. Seeing that, he spoke to me in the same gentle tone someone would use to comfort a child. "Your coworker is here, isn't she? Now you have someone to keep you company, so I can relax too. Go shopping after dinner. I'll cover everything." I was always easily softened by the sight of him. Deep down, I knew when to be reasonable. Even acting spoiled had to have its limits. "Of course you're paying. Were you planning to refuse?" He smiled, hugged me, and his lips accidentally brushed against my ear. My face immediately turned red. I pushed him away. "Go already." After he left, I turned around and only then realized Robin had witnessed everything. "Sorry, James still has work to deal with, so he can't join us for dinner. Let's eat somewhere expensive later and make him pay for it." "It's okay." Robin still wore her gentle smile. You two really have a great relationship. Of course, we've been together for 3 years. 3 years? So you started dating right after graduation? Yeah, actually. We were supposed to pick out wedding rings today. The moment I mentioned it, I felt a little annoyed. Forget it. Let's not talk about it. Unexpectedly, Robin stopped walking. Wedding rings? I looked at her in confusion. Yeah, what's wrong? The smile at the corner of her lips stiffened slightly. Her usual warmth disappeared. It's nothing. I was worried that maybe I interrupted your time together. I looked at her for a while, then I smiled. It's not your fault. He's always been like that. He's just a workaholic. Chapter 3. During dinner, Robin asked how James and I had met. A friend of a friend. I met James because a friend had organized a desert road trip. There were 4 people in total, 2 men and 2 women. One pair was already a couple, leaving only James and me. At the time, my friend had clearly planned the trip with the intention of bringing us together. I knew exactly what she was trying to do, but I wasn't very interested. The temperature difference between day and night in the desert was extreme. On the first day, I made the mistake of wearing a skirt. Once the wind started blowing, I was freezing so badly that I couldn't stop shivering. That night, I had trouble adjusting to the environment, and by the next morning, I was so dizzy that I couldn't join the rest of the trip. I didn't want to ruin their plans or stop them from taking photos, so I told them to go have fun and not worry about me. After saying that, I lay down, but when I woke up, I saw James sitting beside me. You're awake. He leaned closer and touched my forehead with the back of his hand. Do you still feel uncomfortable anywhere? I blinked and shook my head. People always become more vulnerable when they are sick. At that moment, James' company filled the little gap of insecurity I had been feeling. All the excitement I had been missing during the trip suddenly came back. And somehow, I started to develop feelings for him. After that, there was no dramatic pursuit from either side. We simply spent more and more time together, and everything naturally fell into place. Of course, he was the one who confessed first. On my birthday, he invited me to his house for dinner. He struggled in the kitchen for a long time and finally managed to make a bowl of longevity noodles that was so bland it barely had any taste. Embarrassed, he admitted that it was his first time cooking. I was honest and told him. I could tell. He smiled. Then he looked at me seriously. Suddenly, he reached over, tucked my hair behind my ear, and said he would learn how to cook from then on. Next year, he promised he would make me a perfect bowl of longevity noodles. My memories stopped there. I smiled and said, he's the kind of person who keeps his promises. He really is good at cooking now. Since we live together, he's basically the one who cooks most of the time. I cook occasionally too, but I just don't have much talent in that area. Even now, he still teases me for being hopeless in the kitchen. Robin fell into thought as she took a sip of sparkling wine. That's really nice. Seeing the sadness in her expression, I asked, did you think about your first love again? Robin curled her lips. The smile disappeared almost instantly. Yeah. Chapter 4. Robin's first boyfriend was someone she dated during college. After the college entrance exam results came out, during that summer before university started, an older student organized a group chat and added all the incoming freshmen from their hometown. Before the semester began, that senior suggested everyone meet up for dinner so they could get familiar with each other. That was the night Robin fell in love with her first love at first sight. Unlike me, who always overthought things before making a move, Robin was straightforward. As soon as the gathering ended, she directly confessed her feelings to him. When a girl takes the initiative, the distance between them becomes much smaller. From the very beginning of university, they became the ideal couple everyone admired. They were together for 4 years. Since they were from the same hometown, they had even met each other's parents, and Robin's first love treated her incredibly well. So well that he had almost no boundaries when it came to spoiling her. That was why, even after they broke up, Robin still couldn't forget him. Even now, she had not been able to move on from that relationship. Logically speaking, if their love was really that unforgettable, they shouldn't have ended up breaking up. But after all, it was someone else's heartbreak. Robin never told me why they broke up. As an outsider, I didn't feel comfortable pressing her for answers. I thought that whenever she was ready to talk about it, she would tell me. I just never expected that she would tell me today. She said. I was the one who asked to break up. But the moment I did it, I regretted it. Chapter 5. By then, we had almost finished our meal. When the soup was served, Robin slowly began telling me about her past with her first love. My parents were always very strict with me, from childhood until adulthood. They arranged everything in my life perfectly. All I had to do was obey. So before I met him, I had never really been in a relationship. As for those childish little crushes, there's nothing worth mentioning. After I got together with him, I had completely forgotten about them. My parents didn't want me to date at first. They always thought relationships during school years were unreliable. But after they met him, their opinion quickly changed. They felt that the two of us being together was actually a good thing. I drank my soup and nodded along. Then it sounds like he really was a reliable person. Yeah. A nostalgic smile appeared on Robin's face. During those years we were together, he really spoiled me. I guess my family had controlled me too much growing up. So I completely let myself go around him. I didn't realize it back then, but looking back now, I was honestly pretty unreasonable. I couldn't help laughing. You really don't seem like someone who could be described as unreasonable. I was just too young. She paused. You probably won't believe this, but during my junior year, because he was busy with his internship and didn't have enough time to spend with me, I would start arguments with him over the smallest things. He always gave in to me and never got angry, but I still felt like it wasn't enough. Once, after we had a huge fight, I went out shopping alone. The more I walked, the angrier I became. Eventually, I took off the matching ring he had given me and hung it on a tree branch by the roadside. I looked at her in surprise. And then, he came looking for me that night because he wanted to make up. When he didn't see the ring, he got really angry. I guess he misunderstood something. Seeing how upset he was, I got scared and immediately admitted I was wrong. Guess what he did after hearing that? He didn't hit you, did he? Robin burst out laughing and shook her head. The next morning, he skipped his classes and searched every single tree along that street. Back then, the weather was freezing. His hands were even frostbitten from looking for that ring. That really is something only young people would do. I looked at her. Did he find the ring in the end? He did, but he never gave it back to me. Robin lowered her eyes. I think that might have been when he started losing feelings for me. I was deeply shocked after hearing that and didn't know what to say to comfort her. But Robin only wanted someone to listen. She didn't seem to care much about my reaction. She told me that later, her family opposed their relationship. They fought against it for a long time. But in the end, they couldn't hold on anymore, and the two of them broke up. I expressed my regret out loud. But in my heart, I thought, her parents' disapproval seemed like a shallow reason on the surface. But the process of fighting against it must have drained them both, combined with the confidence they had taken for granted before. That one sentence, "We don't approve," was probably just the final straw that broke the camel's back. Chapter 6. That night, after returning home, I found James in the study. He was wearing glasses, looking refined and handsome. I walked behind him and leaned over his shoulders. "Have you been busy this whole time?" "Almost done." He squeezed my hand. "What did you buy?" "Nothing. We only ate." He frowned. "You ate for that long?" "We were chatting. You know how women are. Once we start talking, we can go on forever." Usually, he would just smile and ignore comments like that. But this time, he surprisingly asked another question. "What did you talk about?" This time, I was the one who frowned. "Since when are you interested in these things? Are you only asking because Robin is pretty? What nonsense are you talking about?" He put on a serious expression. "I asked because I'm interested in everything about you. Of course, if you don't want to tell me, forget it. It's nothing." Robin just told me about her first love. James fell silent. His back was facing me, so I couldn't see his expression. I simply recalled my conversation with Robin and repeated everything to him without adding any exaggeration. At the end, I sighed. That man really treated her well. James remained silent. He pulled my hand and made me sit on his lap. His cheek rested against my neck. "Am I not good to you?" I deliberately teased him. Would you walk through the streets in below zero weather just to search every tree for my ring? James was speechless for a moment. After a long pause, he said sarcastically, I can only say that person was foolish to do something like that. Oh my God, you actually know how to insult people. James had never criticized anyone in private before. Not to mention, he didn't even know who that person was. I watched as he slightly pulled the corner of his lips upward. His hand slipped into my collar. After a while, as if he still wasn't satisfied, he picked me up and carried me toward the bedroom. He said, You've already seen me at my most shameless, haven't you? I was speechless. Chapter 7. Because James had completely overdone it the night before. I looked exhausted when I went to work the next day. When I went to the break room to make coffee, my eyes were half closed. I didn't even notice someone had walked in. What happened? Didn't you sleep well? I opened my eyes and saw Robin. I let out a sigh. It's a long story. She smiled, but then her gaze dropped slightly, and her smile disappeared. What's wrong? I touched the spot on my neck where she had been looking. It's nothing. She still had a blank expression as she took off her scarf. Looks like you attract mosquitoes. If you don't mind, use mine to cover it. I froze for a moment before realizing what she meant. My face immediately turned red. I took her scarf, wrapped it around my neck, and tied a knot. Thank you, I'll return it tomorrow. She smiled faintly. It's no big deal. Because of this, I immediately turned around and scolded James, but he was probably in a meeting and didn't reply. It wasn't until after work that he appeared downstairs at my office building. I got into the car, took off the scarf, and pointed at the mark he had left. Look what you did. James touched my neck. He had still been smiling, but when he saw the scarf in my hand, he suddenly stared at it for 2 extra seconds. When did you buy this? He asked. It's not mine. It belongs to Robin. I folded the scarf and put it into my bag. I had a client meeting today. Luckily, she helped me out. Otherwise, I would have been so embarrassed. James tightened his grip on the steering wheel. His voice sounded slightly hoarse. I'll make it up to you right now. Make what up? I'll buy you a few scarves. You can take turns wearing them every day and never repeat the same one. I'll make everyone else jealous. I was amused by how seriously he said it. Just drive. James pinched my cheek and started the car. I leaned back into the seat. Through the rearview mirror, I saw Robin walking out of the office building. She looked around, and her eyes happened to stop in my direction. Because she had only recently returned to the city for work, she hadn't bought a car yet. Normally, whenever I drove to work and had nothing urgent after work, I would give her a ride home. But this time, for some reason, I watched her through the mirror for a long while, and for the first time, I didn't have the urge to offer her a ride. Chapter 8. James came to pick me up and take me to his place for dinner. The apartment had only been bought last year. I was the one who helped oversee the entire renovation process. James' mother was a simple and warm-hearted woman. She was strict with James, but she treated me incredibly well. After we confirmed that we would register our marriage at the end of the year, I had already started calling her mom. The mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflicts that many people worried about were completely unnecessary in my case. Because whenever I came over, James' mother would cook my favorite sweet and sour pork. She even prepared a jar of the pickled cucumbers she made herself for me. The last time I told her they were delicious, she remembered it. James said she was biased. I proudly replied, That's because I'm lovable. He smiled but didn't argue. This time, I also wanted to get the watch I had left behind last time. If I remembered correctly, it should have been on the bedside table. Their home never hired a housekeeper. All the cleaning was done personally by James' mother. Not a single piece of furniture or corner of the floor had any dust on it. At first, I thought James was being inconsiderate and even criticized him for it. He explained, My mom is just like that. She can't sit still. You'll get used to it. Later, I understood. James' childhood had not been easy. After his father passed away, his mother had worked hard and raised him all by herself. Now, their life might not be considered extremely wealthy, but they had achieved financial stability and would never have to worry about food or clothing. James had always been a very capable person. I had always deeply agreed with that. When I entered the bedroom, I found that there was nothing on the bedside table except the humidifier. I leaned against the door and called out, "Mom, did you put away the watch I left on the cabinet?" "Oh, I was afraid it would get lost. So I locked it in the wardrobe." "Got it." I found the key in the bedside table, unlocked the drawer inside the wardrobe, and immediately saw my watch. After taking it out and putting it on, something else caught my attention, a black square leather box. Since this drawer usually stored things like James' old watch certificates and other documents, I had almost never opened it. The leather box was smaller than a watch case. It didn't look like something meant for storing a watch. After thinking for a moment, I opened it. Inside was a pair of rings. They were a very unique design, with a slightly vintage style. The women's ring was more delicate than the men's. The two rings intertwined with each other, and one of them was decorated with tiny diamonds. I stared at them for a while before taking them out and putting them on. They fit perfectly. A slow smile appeared on my face. After looking at them for a while longer, I reluctantly placed them back where they were. Just as I closed the wardrobe, James entered the room. He lightly tapped my nose. "What are you secretly smiling about?" "I'm laughing at how silly someone is." He didn't even know how to hide a surprise properly. He seemed a little confused, but he didn't ask any further. Because of my unexpected discovery, I was in a great mood for the next few days. Even Robin noticed. In the restroom, she asked if something good had happened to me. I said, "You know how I've been looking for wedding rings recently? I still haven't found one I really like, but James seems to have prepared one for me a long time ago. I guess he wants to surprise me on Valentine's Day in a few days." Then I became frustrated again. If I had known, I wouldn't have peeked. Now the surprise isn't really a surprise anymore. Robin stayed silent for a moment before asking, "When are you planning to register your marriage?" "At the end of the year." "Then there are only a few months left." "Yeah." Robin gave a faint smile. "Congratulations." "Thank you." I applied lipstick while looking into the mirror and casually asked, "Do you have any plans for Valentine's Day?" My family arranged a blind date for me. Chapter 9. After returning home, I told James about it. He had been flipping through a magazine, but he suddenly stopped. After a moment, he said, "If she wants to go on a blind date, you can't exactly stop her, can you? It just feels a little unfortunate. I can tell she still has feelings for her first love." "So what?" He didn't even look up, still focused on the magazine. I threw a pillow at him. "Of course you straight guys wouldn't understand." The pillow landed beside his feet. Only then did he raise his head and look at me. "Then what kind of reaction do you want from me? Do you know any decent single guys? Maybe I can invite Robin out sometime, and we can all have dinner together." I walked over happily and sat on his lap. "Aren't we together because our friends introduced us too?" James naturally wrapped his arms around me. "You've already met all my friends. Which one do you think would be suitable?" I mentioned a name. He immediately laughed in a strange, teasing way. "You think he's good?" I laughed so hard my shoulders shook. "You're even jealous of something like this?" He snorted. Then, as if remembering something, he became serious again. "Don't get too involved in other people's business. What if they don't appreciate it and end up blaming you?" I pouted but accepted what he said. When I turned around, I noticed the magazine on the table. It was open to an advertisement page. A delicate woman's hand wearing an elegant bracelet was displayed on it. I muttered, "I thought you were reading some news. How can you stare at an advertisement for so long?" Because he was holding me, I seemed to feel James' breathing quicken slightly. He said, "It's something I wanted you to see. Do you like it?" Leaning against him, I said I didn't like it. While teasing him about his taste, I suddenly thought about the surprise he had hidden from me. The ring set he chose. His taste was actually quite good. On Valentine's Day, James reserved a table at my favorite restaurant. Thinking about the gift he had prepared, I put in extra effort. Usually, I could finish my makeup in 5 minutes. But this time, I spent a full hour getting ready. Before leaving, I changed into a dress. The nude-colored halter dress matched the pearl necklace around my neck, which James had given me as a birthday gift a few days earlier. I stood in front of James with my hands on my hips. "Do I look good?" He stared at me for 2 seconds, Then he reached out and touched the strap of my dress. "Isn't it cold?" I pushed his hand away. "I have a coat. The restaurant has heating." I deliberately used his words against him. "Exactly." He looked at me for a while. In the end, he gave in. "Fine, do whatever you want, as long as you're happy." Valentine's Day was perfect in every possible way. If only the box James finally took out had been black leather instead of deep blue velvet. This day might have become my favorite day of the year so far. When I saw the dark blue box being pushed toward me from across the table, I realized my mouth had gone completely dry. I couldn't even speak. I looked at James. Under the candlelight, he smiled at me with deep affection. "Open it." Unlike the smooth texture of leather, the velvet material created a heavy resistance when I opened the box. I should have been happy, but when I saw the watch inside, I felt as if an invisible hand had tightened around my throat. Why wasn't it a ring? Chapter 10. The watch James gave me was the one I had fallen in love with before but couldn't bring myself to buy. But after receiving it, I didn't feel the joy I had imagined. Why was it a watch? Shouldn't it have been a ring? If he wasn't planning to give me that ring on Valentine's Day, our anniversary had already passed. He couldn't possibly wait until National Day to give it to me. Could he? Or was he planning to wait until the end of the year, when we registered our marriage? The wind on the rooftop was strong. I raised my hand and stared at the watch. The longer I looked at it, the more my head started to ache. I didn't even notice someone approaching from behind. Robin handed me a cup of coffee and waved her hand in front of me. "Why are you standing here spacing out instead of going to lunch?" I snapped back to reality. There was an uncomfortable heaviness in my chest. After looking at her, I shook my head and asked, "How did your blind date go yesterday?" "Not well." She gave a self-deprecating smile. "I can't forget that person. There's no way I can start a new relationship as if nothing happened." Recently, I kept thinking, if I had been more determined back then, if I had tried harder to understand him, would things have turned out differently today? But unfortunately, there's no medicine for regret. I finally couldn't hold back my curiosity. "Didn't you say your parents were very satisfied with him at first? Why did they change their minds later? Did he do something wrong?" Robin shook her head. "He didn't do anything wrong. It was just..." She paused. "I told you before, my parents controlled me a lot when I was growing up. They always wanted to give me the best of everything. Even after I became an adult, they still worried that I wouldn't be able to take care of myself after going away to university. In my freshman year, they even bought plane tickets and insisted on flying with me. They said they wanted to travel while they were there. But honestly, they just didn't trust me to go alone. Back then, I had just started dating my first love. I never expected my parents to follow me there. We had already planned to go to university together, so I had no choice but to tell them. My parents were unhappy at first, but later, when they visited the university and saw how well he took care of me, how he did everything himself, even carrying my bags for me, they agreed. I vaguely sensed something was wrong. I wanted to say something but stopped myself. Robin looked at me and nodded. "You guessed right. They just wanted to find someone who could act as my personal caretaker throughout my 4 years of university." I was speechless. They said he was quiet and honest. He didn't look like someone who would have bad intentions. Being with him meant he could take good care of me, so he was the perfect choice. Robin's eyes became slightly red. Actually, I realized their intentions a long time ago, but I still held on to a little hope. 4 years of university was a long time. Who knew what would happen in the future? "So you two ended up staying together for 4 years?" I said. "Yeah." She nodded. "We broke up and got back together countless times during those 4 years. But he always gave in to me. I just never expected my parents to be so realistic. The moment we graduated, they demanded that we break up. They even secretly asked him to meet them and said some really hurtful things." Hurtful things? My parents looked down on his family. Robin lowered her eyes. He came from a single-parent family. His mother used to work as a nanny for other people. Somehow, my parents found out and actually used that to humiliate him. He could tolerate anything, but when it came to his mother, he couldn't accept it. Something suddenly flashed through my mind. It happened too quickly for me to catch. Then I heard Robin continue. "He was someone who worked incredibly hard to be with me. He kept pushing himself. Before graduation, he had already saved a considerable amount of money. I always knew he was capable. I knew he would definitely succeed in the future. But I had gotten used to the days when he revolved around me. Whenever he became busy, I would overthink everything. Not only did I fail to understand how hard he was working, but I would also use every little thing as an excuse to start arguments with him. And later, even when my parents said those things to him, I didn't try to stand up for him. At that time, he probably just wanted me to stand on his side and support him. I was too weak. I couldn't hold on. And now, it's too late to regret it. I took some time to process everything Robin had said. As an outsider, and also as her coworker and friend, I couldn't judge who was right or wrong. All I could ask was, "Do you still keep in touch with him?" She shook her head. Then she nodded. I couldn't help it before. I called him once. That night was very late. I waited for him downstairs at his apartment, but he told me he was at his girlfriend's place. He has a girlfriend now? After we broke up for a year, he started dating her. Robin looked straight at me. Her eyes were unusually clear. But a few days ago, he asked to meet me. Chapter 11. I looked at her. The more I thought about it, the stranger everything felt. Why did he ask to meet you? Does he still have feelings for you? Robin smiled but didn't tell me what she and her first love had talked about after meeting again. She only said, "Actually, when I broke up with him, I just wanted to throw another tantrum like I always did before. He would usually comfort me and coax me back. I never thought he would take it seriously. So later, I was the one who lowered my pride and went back to ask him to get back together. Did he agree? No. Why? That time, we ended up arguing again. He said I was only acting out of possessiveness. I couldn't stand him saying that about me, so I became extremely harsh and mean. I frowned. Harsh and mean? I said, "Isn't that because you love me?" Robin imitated the tone she had used back then. There was a strong sense of arrogance and contempt in her voice. I thought that if I were in her first love's position, I probably wouldn't have been able to accept it either. After having his family looked down upon, being humiliated like that by the person he loved would have been unbearable. As you can imagine, he got angry. Robin's voice weakened. But when he was angry, he was actually calm. That was the first time I saw him look at me with such a cold expression. He replied, "Robin, you're wrong. I can love someone else too." For the entire afternoon, I was distracted. Robin had lost control of her emotions and taken a half-day leave. I stared blankly at her empty desk. My mind kept replaying her final words over and over again. I know he only started dating another woman because he wanted to make me jealous. Now my family no longer interferes with my love life like they used to. So when he asked me to meet him a few days ago, I truly wanted to win him back. But then she stopped. When she spoke again, she didn't continue. Instead, she asked me, "Beatrice, what do you think I should do?" Her voice became softer and softer. But somehow, I remembered every single word. I didn't give her an answer, because when I heard that hesitant but, I suddenly felt a chill run down my back for no reason. After work, I sat inside my car. Unlike usual, I didn't drive home. I sat there in a daze for about half an hour. Then James called me. I picked up my phone and waited until it stopped ringing. He called twice in a row. I took off the watch from my wrist. For some reason, I suddenly thought of the matching rings. Then I picked up my phone and called Angelo. "Angelo, talk to me." Angelo was a mutual friend of James and me. He was the one who introduced us back then. He owned a small bar hidden in a quiet alley. I went straight there. It wasn't opening time yet, so there were barely any customers. There was no music playing. The whole place was unusually quiet. Angelo looked behind me. "Where's James?" "Just me." I put down my bag and directly took 2 bottles of whiskey from the refrigerator. Angelo sat down beside me and looked at me uncertainly. "Did you two fight?" "No." I glanced at the hand holding his phone. "Don't tell James I'm here. He doesn't know." Although I thought James would probably call him soon. Before coming here, I had turned off my phone. Angelo awkwardly put his phone face down. "What happened? Don't do this. It's kind of scary." Among our entire circle of friends, my good temper was famous. During my relationship with James, We had never truly had a serious fight. Those occasional little disagreements that barely mattered could even be considered playful moments meant to add some excitement to our relationship. In this relationship, I always believed I knew when to give in and when to stop. I never asked about James' past. I only focused on our future together, because I always thought there was no point in caring about things that were already over. But today, for the first time, I started wondering if I had been wrong. I said, "If you still consider me your friend, then for the questions I'm about to ask, tell me everything you know honestly." Angelo sat up straight. After a moment, he nodded. "I want to ask you something. When did you meet James? Don't you already know? We were college classmates. How was James' social life in college?" "Honestly, not very good. He rarely joined group activities." "Then why were you two so close?" "Because we were roommates. Our beds were next to each other. He said he used to bring you meals all the time." Angelo gradually relaxed and laughed. "I also brought him hot water all the time, okay?" "Oh, so the reason he rarely joined group activities was because he was spending time with Robin. How did you know that?" Angelo blurted out. My heart completely sank. Chapter 12. James, who had always been excellent in both academics and character, once skipped his own major classes just because his girlfriend was upset with him, choosing instead to accompany her to an elective class. The image was so vivid that it made me cough. I had drunk quite a bit, but my mind was still clear. I sneered. A person like that actually chose work over me on the day we went to pick out wedding rings. Angelo was the kind of person who valued loyalty above everything. The problem was that he was too straightforward and not good at hiding things. Trying to get information out of him was almost too easy. He had accidentally let something slip, and now he sat beside me like a child who had done something wrong. Before this, he had constantly defended James. He had even said that no one could tolerate their boyfriend treating an ex so devotedly. But now, this matter really was impossible to explain. "Stop drinking. James will be here soon." I glanced sideways at him. "He knows that I know?" "You two can talk things out properly. You've been together for so many years. Everyone knows how James treats you. And you should know it too. The past is already in the past. People should still look forward." I shook my head. If he knew how I found out about James' past, he probably wouldn't be able to say something like that. Robin coming to find me was already proof that something was wrong. She dared to challenge me because she was relying on James' favoritism. Maybe it was his past feelings. Maybe it was his current ones. I didn't believe they had completely lost contact. Yet until today, I was still kept completely in the dark. What was even more ridiculous was that when Robin told me about her relationship with James, I had actually felt sorry for her. This was deception. It felt like someone had slapped me across the face. My cheeks burned with humiliation. For some reason, I suddenly remembered my birthday more than a month ago. It was a weekday, and my boss had temporarily asked me to stay late for overtime. After everyone in the company had left, James specifically came over to keep me company. He brought a lot of food, dinner, snacks, cake, and candles. That entire floor was left with only the two of us that night. I made a wish in front of the cake. James sat across from me. The candlelight illuminated his face, making him look warm and bright. Moved by the moment, I curled my finger at him, signaling him to come closer. The moment he walked around the table, I kissed him, but since we weren't at home, I didn't dare kiss him deeply. It was only a brief touch. I hugged him and rested my chin on his shoulder. "Thank you." He kissed my ear. Happy birthday." My name was Beatrice. Everyone called me that. Only he called me B. I smiled, but then I saw Robin standing behind the glass door. She was still holding a cake. That was also the day I introduced them to each other. I had already forgotten what their expressions looked like at that moment. I had forgotten how they acted. I only remembered that Robin said she didn't want to interrupt our time together and didn't stay long. Before she left, I asked her to take some snacks with her. James had bought too many weird flavored candies. "Do you want to test your luck? James loves using these to mess with me. Every time I pick one, I never get a normal flavor." "Oh, you should choose the pink ones. Those seem more normal." But Robin only smiled while playing with her hair. "I used to buy this kind of candy all the time." She accurately picked two candies with brown wrappers. "These are bitter. I quickly stopped her. Robin held the candies. Her gaze drifted slightly. She was clearly looking at me, yet it felt like she was looking through me at someone standing behind me. She said, "This brand. I only like the bitter ones." I froze, because I never expected there would be someone else whose taste matched James in this tiny detail. "That's rare. You actually have the same taste as James." Only then did Robin look directly at James. "Really? What a coincidence." James seemed to respond with an Or maybe he didn't. I couldn't even tell anymore. I didn't know why I remembered this tiny detail so clearly. I had never had a particularly good memory. So, was the problem already obvious back then? And yet I foolishly thought they were meeting for the first time. I even introduced them to each other. I sat on the bench outside Angelo's bar, burying my face between my knees. God knew how ridiculous I must have looked back then when I was recommending candy flavors to Robin. Chapter 13. By the time James came to pick me up, it was already dark. He stood in front of me without saying a word. Seeing that I didn't react, he crouched down. "Did you eat?" After a long silence, I raised my head. James looked into my eyes. His eyes were deep, and the color of his irises was dark. Angelo must have told him everything. He knew that I knew. Even though his face showed no expression, I could tell he was nervous. After a while, without saying anything, I reached out my hands. "James, carry me home." He looked at me carefully, but he didn't say anything. He simply turned around and carried me onto his back. He carried me for a while. "Am I heavy?" I asked. "No. People always say drunk people are the heaviest." "How much did you drink?" "I'm not drunk." I lay quietly on his back for a while before asking, "Have you carried her like this before?" I was a lazy person. I didn't like walking. Whenever I got tired, I would ask James to carry me. I didn't know why, but I suddenly felt afraid. Afraid that he had done the same thing for Robin. James stopped walking. I heard him swallow. His voice sounded dry and strained. "Keep walking," I said. "No." My heart loosened slightly, but what poured out from it was still bitterness. "I guessed so. She never told me about that." James took a few more steps. "My relationship with her ended 4 years ago. But you were together for 4 years too. During those 4 years, you treated her very well. The Robin I heard about from her memories was spoiled and willful. Yet there was someone willing to tolerate her endlessly. I didn't want to compare myself with her, but my mind was filled with comparisons. It's all in the past." I still couldn't hold back. "The day I returned the scarf, she told me that scarf was something you gave her during the university recruitment event." James remained silent. That silence was an admission. "No wonder you reacted so strangely when you saw it." I let out a cold laugh. "Then what about those weird flavored candies? Were they something you liked? Or something she liked?" "It was me. She actually doesn't like those candies." My nose suddenly became sour. So that day, she was deliberately pretending. James, I don't like those candies either." My voice trembled. My chin shook as I tried to hold back my tears. But isn't it always the person who cries that gets the candy? We both knew. The candy she was talking about wasn't really candy. Back then, James was the one who always compromised for Robin. Now, I was the one compromising for James. I burst into tears. James suddenly stopped. He lowered me from his back. He wiped away my tears. His fingertips rubbed against my skin, making my face hurt slightly. I turned my head away. "When did you two start contacting each other again?" "We never did." James tried to hug me. I pressed against his shoulder and stopped him from coming closer. His hand stayed against my face. He said, "The time of your birthday was the first time I saw her after we ended things." My fingernails dug deeply into his shoulder, but he didn't even make a sound. "So the old feelings came back?" "How could that be possible?" His voice became anxious. "What exactly did she tell you?" "Some things don't become true just because she says them. But you did hide it from me, didn't you?" I looked at him. "She doesn't get to decide what's true. But does that mean everything you say automatically is?" His face suddenly felt unfamiliar. "You said you two didn't rekindle anything? Then let me ask you one thing. When you found out she was going on a blind date, did you go see her?" His breathing stopped. The strength in his hand loosened. I pushed him away hard. Through gritted teeth, I said, "James, you two made me feel like I was completely foolish. That's not what happened. Then why the hell didn't you tell me?" Chapter 14. In the end, James still hugged me, ignoring my struggles and the way I pushed against him. "I didn't realize that the coworker you kept mentioning, the one you said you had such a good relationship with, was Robin. After that, I thought about telling you, but then you started liking her even more because of the cake she gave you. How was I supposed to say it? Should I have told you that the friend you had just started liking so much was my ex-girlfriend? Or should I have told you that she might have deliberately approached you so you wouldn't fall for it? B. I don't want to lose you. I know you need honesty from me, but I also know that if I told you everything at that time, you would break down. I didn't want you to misunderstand. Hiding it was the stupidest choice, but it was the only solution I could think of back then." After my birthday, James privately confronted Robin. He asked her what exactly she was trying to do. Robin said she wasn't doing anything. It was just a coincidence. They had simply become friends. She even said that I was a good person. And after spending time with me, she finally understood why James had chosen me. James only asked her to stay away from me. She agreed without hesitation. But during that period, she called James several times. He never answered. He even blocked her number. Perhaps because of that, she became angry and started using the story of being his first love to deliberately provoke me. Just as she wanted, the snowball wrapped in lies grew bigger and bigger, until today, when it finally collapsed. When James tried to show me his phone, I slapped his hand away. "Do you think I wouldn't have fallen apart after finding out now?" "Sorry." He gently patted my head, comforting me like a child. "I'm sorry, B. I don't want to hear that. I can let go of what happened between you two in the past, but I really can't accept being treated like this. For more than a month, I've been living like a complete joke. I even felt sympathy for my fiancé's first love. It's ridiculous." I crouched down and looked at him helplessly. "I mentioned her to you so many times. I told you about her and her first love. You had so many chances to tell me. How am I supposed to trust you now? You said she was already part of your past. But even now, you're still affected emotionally because of her. I'm not wrong about that, am I?" James sighed and knelt down in front of me. "The reason I'm still affected by her is because this involves you. I'm afraid you'll overthink things. I'm afraid you'll be influenced by her. Right now, all I want is to be with you properly. I don't want to care about anything else. So that's your reason for hiding it?" He lowered his eyes. After taking a deep breath, he said, "I don't know what else she told you, but to me, the beautiful story she described is a past I never want to remember. Actually, I don't even want to mention it, because that time represents my own foolishness, ignorance, and the way I once lowered myself without limits." Robin had always been spoiled by her parents. She was used to everyone revolving around her. She couldn't tolerate even the slightest bit of neglect. During that relationship, he had exhausted himself trying to love her. The so-called love had already been worn away in the process. But when you heard she was going on a blind date, you asked to meet her. I suddenly remembered the advertisement page in the magazine. My heart sank even further. Yes, I did ask to meet her, but I did it to tell her to stop and stop bothering you. You think I hid this because I wanted something improper? That's ridiculous. My heart only has you now. How could I possibly divide my feelings between two people? Such beautiful words. I shook my head. James, you still don't understand, do you? You shouldn't have gone to meet her. The person you should have told was me. This has nothing to do with Robin. This is a crisis of trust. You don't trust me anymore? James wiped his face. When he looked up again, the corners of his eyes were slightly red. B. What exactly do I have to do for you to forgive me? Seeing him like that, I suddenly wanted to cry again. It wasn't that I didn't trust him. It was that I no longer knew who I could trust. I lowered my head. Then I saw my empty wrist. A thought suddenly struck me. My fingertips trembled, and I felt strangely weak. I asked, James, why didn't you give me the ring on Valentine's Day? For a moment, James looked confused. Then, exhausted, he looked at me. What ring? He once skipped his classes for an entire morning and searched every tree on the street in below-zero winter weather just for my ring. My body suddenly hurt. From the inside out. James anxiously asked what was wrong. I forgot I was still crouching. When I moved backward, I stumbled and fell onto the ground. Maybe because my face had gone completely pale. James froze in place. He didn't dare move closer. I looked at him through blurry eyes. James, let's break up. Chapter 15. When I returned to James' apartment, I packed my things and prepared to move out. James wouldn't let me. He said he would leave instead. We haven't finished talking yet. Get some rest first. Don't overthink things. When you're ready to hear the rest, I'll explain everything to you. After I asked to break up, I stopped responding to him. He didn't agree to the breakup. At that moment, he looked completely defeated. I stopped folding my clothes and said, I've already heard most of what I wanted to know. Some things don't have to be explained down to every detail before you understand the truth. Actually, at the beginning, I never thought about breaking up. I was just too hurt. I kept wanting to have a serious fight with you, just to prove that I mattered. As for the reason I want to break up, the moment I thought about it, my heart ached. I don't want to say it anymore. Figure it out yourself. He would find out what he needed to know sooner or later. The ridiculous thing was that even now, I still held on to a small amount of hope for him. I didn't dare break everything apart too quickly, because I was afraid that once I said everything out loud, there would truly be no future left for us. That night, James left the apartment. I guess he went back to his mother's place. I lay alone in bed, repeatedly thinking about everything Robin had told me. Call me slow. Call me someone who avoided the truth. But by the end, Robin's hints had already been so obvious. Only then was I willing to face what had really happened. I spent the entire night dreaming. During the day, I heard movement at the front door and immediately woke up. It was James. He had brought breakfast. He was still wearing yesterday's clothes. When he saw me come out, he asked, "Why didn't you sleep longer?" The breakfast he bought only came from one place in the entire city. It was near the university district, quite far from here. When I met him, I had just graduated and hadn't changed jobs yet. I loved the steamed dumplings from that place. Later, after moving here, whenever I craved them, he would drive there to buy them. But because I didn't want to trouble him, I rarely mentioned it. I smelled the cigarette smoke on him. "Where did you go last night? You didn't go home?" In the car. Looks like he hadn't closed his eyes all night. I closed my eyes briefly and sat down at the dining table. Don't just stand there. Eat first. After that, take a shower. Whether you rest or go to work is your choice. He looked at me. There was finally a little light in his eyes. Still uncertain, he slowly sat down. When he saw that I wasn't saying anything else, he silently ate breakfast with me. I had no appetite, but I still forced myself to eat a little. While James was taking a shower, I took the luggage I had packed the night before and left. The moment I got into the car, his call came in. I answered. Neither of us spoke for a while. Before hanging up, I said, "You don't have to do this. If you ruin your health, neither of us will be happy." I asked HR for 2 days off and drove back to my own apartment. Luckily, I hadn't rented it out. Otherwise, I wouldn't even have had a place to stay. The only problem was that I hadn't been back for a while. The entire place was covered in dust. When Angelo called me, I was still cleaning. The moment he picked up, he apologized. "I thought you two were just having a normal argument. I didn't know things had gotten this serious." "Beatrice, I'm sorry. It's not your fault. Where are you now? Did James ask you to find out?" He guessed. "But he doesn't dare come looking for you. He's afraid that if you leave again, he won't know where to find you." After that, Angelo said many more things. I don't really remember most of them. Chapter 16. For the next few days, I didn't see James. Not only him, I didn't see Robin either. The next time I saw James was 5 days later. He was waiting outside my apartment. He seemed to have lost some weight. His jawline looked sharper, and faint stubble had grown along his chin. Actually, I knew, during these days, he had come here several times. Although he never appeared in front of me, I had seen his car. I glanced at him, then stepped forward to unlock the door. The hallway was silent except for the sound of the key turning in the lock. As soon as the door opened, he grabbed my hand. "B, why are you here? You've been working overtime again?" I pulled my hand away. "I asked why you came here." "The ring. I thought I had lost it a long time ago." The air fell silent for a moment. My palm gradually turned cold. So what I saw really was the matching couple rings Robin talked about. "Listen to me first." He held my hand, trying to warm it. "Back then, when I searched for the ring, it was more because I was angry at myself and unwilling to accept losing it. After I found it, I didn't give it back to Robin. I simply threw it into a drawer and left it there for a long time. So long that even I forgot it existed. If you hadn't mentioned it, I never would have thought about looking for it. You say you just threw it away, but that's not what I saw. My mom put it away." I froze. She didn't know anything. You know what my mom is like. She's sentimental and hates throwing things away. She probably found the rings when we moved at the beginning of the year. She thought we had carelessly misplaced them, so she put them away for us. As he spoke, James took out an old phone. She had messaged me about it before, but I was in a meeting at the time and didn't think much about it, which caused this misunderstanding. I looked at the phone. The date on the screen was from the beginning of the year. "James' mother. I found some old jewelry while cleaning the old apartment. I put them away for you. Remember not to leave things lying around anymore. It's such a waste." James replied almost half an hour later. "Got it." I stared at the screen for a long time, but I didn't feel the relief I had imagined. Everything Robin had said had already become a thorn embedded in my heart, a thorn that stood between James and me. At that moment, my mind split into two voices. One tried to comfort me and tell me to forgive him. The other questioned, was he really as indifferent as he claimed? Those rings were proof that they had once been together. They constantly reminded me that James and Robin had once shared a beautiful relationship. If he truly didn't care, why would he have searched for them? The fact that he hid this from me for so long, it was hard not to wonder if he was simply trying to preserve the last bit of dignity for Robin. Of course, I could pretend to be understanding. I could say I didn't mind, but how could I? Robin dragged me into the world of their past relationship. She made me understand their struggles and sympathize with them. And because of that, every time I looked at James now, one thought would appear in my mind. Had he treated Robin this way too? It had become a nightmare, a thought I couldn't get rid of. I probably couldn't process it in such a short time. I already threw away the rings. As for Robin, I'll handle this matter as soon as possible. I won't let her bother you again. That's your business. B. James, we've already broken up. Many things in a relationship couldn't be solved simply by proving yourself innocent. No one could predict how love would turn out. I just couldn't get past this in my heart. James looked at me for a long time. His chest rose and fell heavily. "I understand." I frowned slightly. He let go of my hand. "Take good care of yourself." Chapter 17. The next day was the weekend. I slept until I woke up naturally, though my eyes were still a little swollen. I had gotten a membership at a tennis club and usually went there to play once every week or so. I originally wanted to be lazy and skip this time, but my coach reminded me that I had already missed my last session. After thinking about it, I decided to go. Only after arriving did I find out that today's practice partner was my private coach's nephew. My usual coach had something urgent come up and wasn't there. I played a match with the new coach and ended up drenched in sweat. Afterward, he sat down beside me. "Are you always this intense when you play?" "No, not really. Feels like you came here with a lot of anger today." I was breathing heavily, and my hands were too weak to twist open the bottle cap. He took it from me and opened it. "Thanks." While I was drinking water, I saw someone walking toward me. After wiping away my sweat, I finally realized it was James. He was wearing sportswear and looked much younger than when he was dressed in a suit. After arriving, he didn't say anything. It was still the coach who asked, "Someone you know?" I glanced at James, unable to understand what exactly he was trying to do. Didn't he say "I understand" yesterday? Why was he acting like this again today? Just as I was about to shake my head, he cut in. "I'm her boyfriend, ex-boyfriend." I glared at him and added, The coach looked extremely interested in the gossip, but he was considerate enough to read the situation. I'll go walk around for a bit. I'll come back later. After the coach left, James sat down beside me. Did you come here to flirt with her? Or is he your new coach? Do you need something? Did something happen to your previous coach? I stood up, ready to leave. He quickly grabbed me. Play a match with me. Why should I play with you? Scared? James, can you stop being so childish? He ignored me and looked toward the coach in the distance. The coach was talking with his original student. How about a one-on-one match? I stared at him. After a long silence, I said, fine. James' tennis skills were no worse than the coach's. He didn't hold back at all during the match, even with the coach helping me block and absorb some of his attacks from the side. I still struggled badly. I couldn't tell whether I should be angry at him for showing no mercy or laugh at how ridiculously jealous he was. The more we played, the angrier I became. I poured all my frustration into every single shot. Then he suddenly gave up. The yellow-green tennis ball hit him hard in the chest, and he fell to the ground. I immediately ran over. Are you okay? He grimaced, clutching his chest, but instead asked me, are you feeling a little less angry now? I pushed him away. Do you have nothing better to do? But he only looked at me, pain filling his eyes. That night, my phone notified me that the person I had marked as special attention had posted a new update. I clicked on it without thinking. It was a short sentence posted by James with no explanation. Until you're no longer angry. I picked at my fingers, removed him from my special attention list, and blocked him. But his nothing better to do behavior did not stop there. I posted that I wanted sushi. 2 hours later, food from a Japanese restaurant that normally didn't even offer delivery arrived at my door. After that, I stopped posting much online. I never bothered remembering my period dates. Yet I always suffered terribly from cramps. 2 days before my period was due, he had already ordered medicine for me and even attached a note reminding me to take it. Then I started receiving packages from him one after another, along with letters that arrived without fail, like diary entries. They recorded his daily life, as if we had never broken up. After a coworker received the afternoon coffee James had sent over, she laughed and asked me, your husband is on a long-term business trip or something? I was speechless. Yes. Right now, James and I were like a couple in a long-distance relationship. He was using his actions to show me that he refused to accept our breakup. But without any response from me, how long could this kind of effort last? Suddenly, I remembered how naturally James and I had gotten together back then. Once we realized our feelings had reached that point, we simply became a couple. He had never chased after me, nor had he ever given me a cheesy confession. Now, everything he was doing felt like he was trying to make up for the regrets of the past. To say I wasn't moved would be a lie, but what I felt more than anything was confusion. I hadn't seen Robin for almost a month. She had disappeared as if she had vanished into thin air. Some people in the office said she had resigned. Others said she was sick. Since she wasn't around, everyone had their own guesses. Some even asked if I knew where she had gone. I was completely confused. I knew nothing. Yet they laughed and said, weren't you two best friends? Were we really that close? That was what I wondered. Would a true best friend scheme against me and subconsciously push me into the role of the other woman? The day I received Robin's call, it was late at night. I was already asleep. At first, she just cried and didn't say anything. Her sobbing instantly woke me up. I asked uncertainly, Robin? But she choked out. What exactly did you give him? What kind of spell did you put him under? I was speechless. Chapter 18. Robin hung up after only a few words. I sat there in a daze for a long time. Then I took James out of my blacklist and called him. The moment the call went through, I regretted it. I thought there was no way he would answer in the middle of the night. But just as I was about to hang up, his voice came through. There was no trace of sleepiness. He sounded completely awake. B? I took a deep breath and asked, what did you do to Robin? She came to you? Yeah. On James' end, I heard the sound of a car engine starting. He said, I met with her parents. I was stunned, because according to Robin, her parents had always been extremely controlling. Maybe they had loosened up after she became an adult. But whenever we went shopping together and she received a call from home, she would always become incredibly tense. What did you say to them? Nothing. James paused for a moment. I just hoped she would stop bothering you. Do you know she hasn't come to work for a month? Is that so? His tone was calm, as if he had already expected it. I didn't know what to say. I was starting to think about ending the call, but James stopped me. I'm not that forgiving. I understood what he meant. Robin was the reason our relationship had ended up like this. There was no way he could simply pretend nothing had happened. Holding my phone tightly, I said, I think Robin's mental state isn't very stable. Yeah, you knew? During my senior year internship, the company arranged a business trip for us. Angelo and I shared a dorm room, and 2 girls from our department were also on the trip. After work, during our free time, those 2 girls came to our room to play cards. After Robin found out, she completely lost her temper on the phone. She threw and smashed everything within reach and demanded that I make those girls leave. Otherwise, she said she would go out and spend the night with another man. There were 4 people in the room at the time. Angelo was there too. Do you think that was normal? This was the first time I had ever heard about Robin's past from James. My mind went completely blank. In my dazed state, all I remembered was that his voice sounded very far away. A relationship that has already fallen apart completely. Once you let go of it, it's no longer something worth holding on to. The next day, when I arrived at the law firm, the coworker beside me immediately raised her eyebrows and gave me a knowing look. Robin is back. I was startled. Where is she? The boss's office. My coworker lowered her voice. Her parents brought her here. They're probably waiting in the meeting room right now. I turned around and happened to see Robin walking out of the office. We both froze. Robin looked much more exhausted than before. She wasn't wearing any makeup, and the dark circles under her eyes were obvious. At that moment, a middle-aged couple walked out of the meeting room. As if sensing something, they looked in my direction. They should have been Robin's parents. Robin seemed to say something to them. They frowned and argued with her quietly for a few moments before finally leaving. As Robin's mother passed by me, she quickly looked me up and down. I frowned uncomfortably. Robin walked over to me. Beatrice, let's talk. Chapter 19. In the stairwell, Robin asked me. Feels pretty satisfying, doesn't it? I decided not to answer that. Did you resign? She let out a small laugh. What place would keep me after I was absent for a whole month? Didn't you notice they already hired someone new? I looked at her as if I was seeing her for the first time. She had never treated me this way before. Now, it was as if she had completely given up and decided to stop caring about anything. What do you want to talk about? I asked. You look like you don't care at all. Am I supposed to cry? True. She laughed softly. I've always known you were his girlfriend. When I first got close to you, I can't say I had any particular intention. At most, I just wanted to see what kind of person he had chosen. Beatrice, you and I are completely different. But the thing I hate most is that you're different from me. Robin and I had worked together for half a year. It wasn't until my birthday more than 2 months ago, when she met James, that she finally told me the story of her first love. Calling it a spur-of-the-moment decision would be wrong. It was more like something she had planned for a long time. It had only been a matter of time. So you got what you wanted. I said. What did I want? She looked at me blankly, then shook her head as if she had just realized something. If I got what I wanted, then why didn't he come back to me? Why is he still only focused on you? Faced with her shameless logic, I was actually speechless. James is probably the person who least wanted to see my parents. Yet he actually took the initiative to meet them because of you. He's really heartless. He knows exactly what I'm afraid of. Tell me, what exactly is so special about you that makes him willing to do all this? Why didn't he ever think about trying to hold on to me the way he tried to hold on to you back then? She sounded almost like she was talking to herself. I was starting to feel exhausted. That's because you only remember the one time he finally gave up on you. James couldn't possibly have never tried to keep her. She had caused a scene again and again, and he had lowered himself again and again. The disappointment had piled up until it became a mountain. It was just that she had always taken his forgiveness for granted, so she couldn't accept it when he finally left. What do you know? She suddenly shouted. Her voice echoed through the stairwell. Have you ever waited downstairs at his apartment for more than 2 hours, only to hear him say that he was with his girlfriend? You two had already broken up at that time. I don't know which day you're talking about. I only know that when James and I were together, you had already broken up with him for a year, and that was something you told me yourself. James being with me was completely natural. Besides, they never had an appointment in the first place, so there was no such thing as him standing her up. How did it become something he had done wrong to her when she told the story? Considering how emotional she was, I didn't say the words in my head. Don't play the kind of game where you move yourself so much that you end up blaming others for not reacting. That's just pathetic. You still don't understand, do you? You're just his second choice. He's only with you because he wants revenge on me. I had to admit, after she had spent an entire month trying to brainwash me with that idea, those words hit harder than they should have. I looked at her coldly. Then why are you yelling at me now? Robin stared at me. For once, she had nothing to say. At that moment, her phone rang. It was her parents calling. They were urging her to hurry. She looked at me one last time. There was resentment in her eyes, but there was also pity. She brushed past my shoulder and walked away. I stood alone in the darkness for a long time. After I adjusted my emotions and walked out, Robin was already gone. Several people in the office were whispering among themselves. When they saw me approach, they immediately asked curiously what Robin and I had talked about. Nothing. Then why did Cece suddenly start crying and tell her mom she didn't want to leave? What? She cried. My coworker sounded certain as she raised her hand. Then her dad slapped her and asked if she could stop embarrassing him. My coworker was still sighing over how hard that slap must have been. But I stood there stunned, suddenly remembering the last thing Robin said to me before she left the stairwell. She said, "This is probably karma. What my parents did to him back then. Today, he returned all of it to me." Chapter 20. After James found out that Robin had returned to the company, he called me several times. My mind was a complete mess, and I didn't answer. Anyone who had dealt with someone as extreme as Robin would need time to process everything. Now, whenever I thought of Robin, I would think of James. Why should the resentment between the two of them be taken out on me? The more I thought about it, the more frustrated I became. I left James hanging for a week. There was definitely some intention behind it, but I really was busy too. The person who took over Robin's work was a well-connected employee with almost no workplace experience. I worked overtime for 2 days straight. Most nights, I would come home and fall asleep immediately. I barely had time to even check my phone. That day was the same. The only difference was that halfway through drying my hair after a shower, the power suddenly went out. The property management had informed us in advance, but I had been so busy recently that I completely forgot. My hair was still slightly damp. I fumbled around in the darkness, trying to find my phone. Before I could find it, someone knocked on the door. B. Opened the door. It was James. I froze for a moment before finally reacting and going to open the door. Even though it was my own home, I still bumped my knee while trying to find my way there in the dark. James was standing outside. Even his dark silhouette couldn't hide the worry on his face. Did the power go out? How did you know? I happened to be passing by. You still think you can fool me? He touched his nose awkwardly. I've been downstairs the whole time. Why? You've been working late for several days in a row. I was worried. I needed to see you come home safely. But I had already been home for an hour, and he still hadn't left. Maybe he had been waiting like this every night recently. My heart was filled with complicated emotions. I stepped aside. Come in. He looked at me for a few more seconds before turning on his phone's flashlight. The whole building is dark. Yeah. When will the power come back? Probably in an hour. Chapter 21. After James came inside, he helped me find my phone. The only light in the room came from the screen of my phone on the coffee table. I sat in the corner of the sofa. After a brief silence, I said, "When Robin left, she said something to me." After repeating her words, I looked at him. Why did she say it was karma? He clenched his fingers, looking as if he was fighting the urge to smoke. During the winter break when Robin and I had just started dating, her parents invited me to their house for dinner. After that, Robin told me that her parents had a very good impression of me. I believed her. But I also knew her family background was much better than mine. If I wanted to give her the best future, I had to work harder. So usually, whenever I could accommodate her, I rarely said no. Suddenly, he let out a bitter laugh and continued. During my senior year of college, things between Robin and me weren't good because I was too busy. But deep down, I kept telling myself that as long as I could get through that period, everything would be fine. I held on to that belief and forced myself to endure. Listening to him, I felt an emptiness in my chest. I suddenly understood why he had never told me these things. Words like these could hurt no less than a knife. Hearing them from him directly was far more painful than Robin's subtle hints and accusations. He really had treated her too well in the past. That was probably why he never wanted to tell me. Even though I already knew the whole story, my eyes still started to sting. What did her parents say to you? I don't remember the exact details anymore. It was basically that I wasn't good enough for Robin, that I should stop bothering her, and that we should just end things peacefully. At the time, I refused to believe it. I insisted that Robin hear it from me directly, but she had already disappeared for a week by then. Obviously, she didn't want to see me. Maybe she was angry. Maybe she silently approved of what her parents did. But what truly made me give up was that her parents looked down on my mother, and Robin didn't say a single word to defend me. Not even one. She told me she came back to ask you to get back together soon afterward. But you refused. Yes. That was the day I realized she was actually a lot like her parents. The way they looked down from above, stepping on other people's dignity without hesitation. At that time, I was only in my early 20s. I was too young and too proud. I swore that I would make something of myself. A while ago, I met with her parents. I repeated every single thing they had said to me back then. To be honest, I felt a sense of satisfaction from getting revenge. But after that feeling faded, I was left with emptiness. Suddenly, I didn't understand what meaning any of it had. I spoke awkwardly. How could it have no meaning? At first, it was my pride talking. I was young and reckless, and I thought I could achieve anything. After entering society, I realized those things weren't even worth mentioning. If my original motivation was to make them regret looking down on me, then everything I did afterward was for myself, for you, and for us. I got my priorities backward. I cared too much about those meaningless insults, worked myself to the bone, and ended up ignoring your feelings instead. The sofa was small. James only leaned slightly closer before sitting right beside me. He held my hand. His voice was serious. I'm sorry. I looked at his face so close to mine. I didn't move away. I'm not as decisive as you. Maybe I can't be as clear-headed as you were. This whole thing has left a knot in my heart. I thought I wouldn't be able to move past it. Would he still be okay with that? But he didn't let me finish. Give me a chance. He touched my cheek. His palm was unusually warm. But I don't know if I can. Then take it slowly. The next moment, my lips were covered by his. James didn't leave that night. I don't remember when the power came back. The lights in the living room stayed on all night, but the bedroom remained completely dark. Occasionally, soft whispers drifted through the room, but I was already lost in a haze, and I couldn't remember what else he said to me. It was probably something sweet. With my back facing him, I fell asleep. It was the best sleep I had had in days. Chapter 22 Extra. Before I knew it, New Year's Day was just around the corner. I still remembered last New Year's Eve. James and I had watched fireworks together in a hotel because we had booked a couple's package. There was even red wine and desserts prepared in the room. That night, I wasn't exactly behaving myself, and neither was he. But now, our relationship was nothing like before. It was unclear, complicated, and impossible to sort out. We were supposed to be a couple, yet we could never return to the sweetness we once had. I had already moved out. James came over to my place every few days. If he wanted to stay the night, he still had to act pitiful and find an excuse. If we called ourselves sex partners, then honestly, I had never seen a partner who cared as much as he did. He never missed a single thing, checking if I was cold, asking if I had eaten, taking care of every little detail. Compared to the past, he was even more attentive now. He even spent more time with me than before. He no longer asked me when we would get back together. He simply focused on making up for everything. He didn't ask for anything in return either. As if he truly didn't care about the so-called relationship status. But I knew he cared. A few days ago, I went alone to a class reunion. Everyone thought I was single. I couldn't explain my complicated situation. So some people started teasing me and pairing me up with our former class president. After the gathering ended, the class president drove me home. James happened to see us. His face immediately darkened. He wanted to get angry but couldn't. In the end, he forced himself to hold it in. After we went upstairs, he made me hangover soup. I told him to leave. He used taking care of me as an excuse to stay. But that night, taking care of me somehow turned into him climbing into my bed. He held me tightly, refusing to let go. At the end, he hugged me even harder and whispered in a low voice, almost like he was talking in his sleep. "Can you stop looking at other people and look at me again?" 3 months had passed since Robin left. That night was the first time James had stopped pretending to be completely understanding and finally admitted what he truly wanted. I felt a strange sense of loss. Of course, I understood his insecurity. As long as I didn't give him an answer, he would never feel at ease. But he didn't dare ask me either, afraid that the first thing he would hear from me was rejection. Round and round, we had fallen into a deadlock. After a long while, I turned around to look at him. He was already asleep. My apartment wasn't close to his company. Running back and forth like this every day, he wasn't made of steel. How could he not be tired? On the last day of the year, no one in the office could focus on work. Everyone was busy planning their New Year's Eve gatherings. A coworker asked me why I wasn't going with them. I subconsciously glanced at my phone. Before I could answer, someone else spoke for me. "Of course Beatrice is spending it with her boyfriend. Do you think everyone is like us?" I neither admitted it nor denied it. That night, James' moment of vulnerability only lasted briefly. The next day, he returned to his usual calm self. I didn't know how long he could keep enduring it, so I didn't expose the fragile balance between us. However, until I got off work that day, I still hadn't received any message from James. I went back to my apartment alone. Although he hadn't moved in, I found traces of him everywhere. Just as I picked up my phone again, almost as if we had some kind of connection, the screen lit up with an incoming call from James. I immediately answered. "Where are you?" His voice was hoarse. "I'm at the hospital." James' mother was sick and had been hospitalized. After hanging up, I immediately took a taxi to the hospital. In the hallway, I saw James. I walked over and asked what had happened. He seemed surprised that I arrived so quickly. "Don't worry, the surgery went very well. She's fine now. It was thyroid surgery. They had only confirmed 2 days ago that the tumor was benign." I felt a little angry. "Why didn't you tell me earlier? She's my mother too." The moment I said that, both of us froze, because it had been a long time since I had accompanied him home to visit his mother. I didn't know whether James had told his mother about what happened between us, but she never called me to persuade me to forgive him. She only occasionally made small dishes like pickled cucumbers and asked James to bring them to me. After a moment of silence, James took my hand. "Go inside and see her? Mom must really miss you." I took a deep breath and entered the hospital room. Seeing James' mother's pale and exhausted face, my nose instantly became sore. But when she saw me, her eyes immediately lit up. She waved me over and asked, "Why have you lost weight again?" I lowered my head, feeling so guilty that I didn't even dare look at her. She simply touched my head and gave me an excuse to step down. "Have you been too busy lately? Even if you're busy, you still have to remember to eat. Don't follow those people who try to lose weight. It's bad for your health." From beginning to end, she never mentioned James. Suddenly, I became afraid that she would find out about the ring. Because if she knew, with James' mother's personality, she would definitely blame herself. Chapter 23. After she fell asleep, I walked out of the hospital room. I didn't see James anywhere, but when I checked my phone, I found out he was downstairs, looking at the moon. The hospital was unusually quiet on New Year's Eve. He was sitting on a bench by the roadside, his head slightly raised. His back was completely still, and I had no idea what he was thinking about. I sat down beside him. We had been together for so long that he knew what I wanted to ask without me saying a word. He said, "Mom doesn't know about the ring." I let out a sigh of relief. "Then what did you tell her?" "The truth. I told her Robin came back, and I didn't handle my relationship with her properly." "Which made you angry?" "The ring was only the trigger. Even without it, things would have come out eventually. From the very beginning. He shouldn't have hidden it." I remained silent. Then he continued, "I also told her that I would do my best to win you back. Of course, she's on my side, but she was also afraid that you would force yourself to stay because of her. So she didn't contact you." Don't overthink it. She still cares about you very much." I sniffed and shook my head. How could I overthink it? I knew James' mother had suffered a lot in the past. What upset me was that I had been so angry with James during this time that I didn't go visit her. I didn't even know she was sick. Then James wrapped an arm around my shoulders. "Do you know when I started liking you?" He successfully distracted me. I looked up. "When?" "Not long after we came back from the desert. That time I asked you out for a drive. That was our first date alone. Two people who weren't officially together yet. Sitting by the lake, looking at each other. The tension between us made our hearts race. We almost kissed. I remembered that his phone rang at that moment. That was why we didn't. When I answered the phone, you used grass to weave a little ring. After you finished, you looked at me and smiled. When someone is on the phone, part of their mind is usually somewhere else. The smile you showed me at that moment filled that empty space. If I hadn't smiled then, would you not have fallen for me? Then I would have fallen in love with you the next second." After saying that, he suddenly reached into the pocket of his coat and took out a velvet box. My pupils shrank. Inside the opened box was a diamond ring. "I had someone custom make this for you. It took a long time, and I only got it last month. I've been carrying it with me all this time. I was afraid you wouldn't want it, so I didn't dare give it to you." I looked at the ring and remembered everything that had happened a few months ago. Time really passed quickly. I asked him, "So you're brave enough to give it to me now? If you like it, keep it. If you don't like it." He suddenly couldn't continue. After a long silence, under his gaze, I picked up the ring. I ran my fingers over it. Then I bent my finger and slipped it on. It fit perfectly. I couldn't help but open my hand and look at it. I had to admit, this ring was exactly my style, but I didn't want to admit it so easily. So I pursed my lips slightly and said with dissatisfaction, "It's not really about whether I like it or not. It's okay." James looked at me for a long time. Then he smiled. He held my hand. Seeing that I didn't resist, he squeezed it gently. The ring pressed against my palm. Its presence impossible to ignore. "Okay, next time, I'll order one that you'll love the moment you see it. It can be really, really expensive too." Of course. What would I even need so many rings for? They're just material things. You can wear different ones whenever you want. Because there could be many rings, but there was only one love.